Right, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this BPS webinar. Our topic today is how to bring science to life for a public audience. We know that this is something that so many of you have asked for, so we're really delighted to be bringing you speakers today. We're going to be really portioning this topic up into different areas and giving you lots of information about how to disseminate your science for the general public. So I think without further ado, we'll get started with the first talk, which is from Qasim and I. So yeah, hello everybody.
So welcome everyone to today's webinar. So happy to have you all here. In our session, we'll be taking you guys behind the scenes of developing an animated public engagement video. So I'm Qasim Abbasi, the newly appointed Community Engagement Officer at the British Pharmacological Society.
And I'm Harriet Kotta. Unlike Qasim, I don't have a scientific background. Qasim studied pharmacology. I'm head of marketing and communications at the BPS. So I have a background in broad communications across lots of different charities and not-for-profit organisations. Delighted to be sharing my knowledge with you today in this area. So let's take you through the process of working with an animation company to develop and deliver a high-quality public engagement video, which in this case is based on research into treating mental health conditions with psychedelic compounds. So the first step is choosing your topic. One of the key goals at the BPS is to promote public understanding of pharmacology and its impact on both human and animal health. So with the growing interest and research around psychedelics as potential treatments for mental health conditions like depression and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, we identified an opportunity to create an educational resource on this cutting-edge topic.
So as a non-profit organization committed to our mission, vision, and values, we recognize the emerging novel scientific research on this rather niche topic as an excellent opportunity to engage the wider public. Developing a comprehensive plan that seamlessly integrated our core principles was crucial to ensuring a streamlined project execution. So from the outset, we were committed to ensuring scientific accuracy while making the content relatable and understandable to non-experts. Achieving this balance was very, very crucial for effectively engaging the public.
Yeah, so as well as thinking very much about getting that balance right for a public audience, it's also really important to think about the subject matter of your video and also the timing of that. So including also your knowledge and your passion for the topic. So there's obvious benefits of putting out content on a theme that everyone is talking about at a particular time, like around psychedelics and mental health as they're doing now. However, you need to make sure that you are adding to the conversation. So do you have a new take on this topic, or do you have more information to add other than what's already out there? Or perhaps you're reaching a different audience that hasn't yet been addressed. It's also worth thinking, does the content that you're hoping to create have a lasting legacy, or is it really of the moment? Because that will help determine the type of content that you'll put out and potentially also the platforms that you want to put it out on as well. And of course, if you are passionate and knowledgeable about the subject, then that will shine through in the video that you're creating or the content that you're creating, and it should help you really connect with your audiences as well. The next step after choosing your topic is to think about script production and collaboration. So the script development process for us was a collaborative effort. We wanted to create a narrative, to craft a narrative that really simplified complex pharmacological concepts without compromising their integrity.
So initially, I produced a script that I was really, really happy with, as it encompassed a wealth of scientific knowledge. However, upon review from Harriet and Chloe, it became very, very clear that this advanced level of content would not resonate with the common person in wider society, which is the opposite of what we wanted, obviously. So with this in mind, we put our skills together to finalize a script with an inclusive tone and language. So I really learned how important it is to use real words and keep things simple when communicating complex topics to a general audience.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Qasim wrote an absolutely amazing script. It's just where that was really beneficial to use his scientific knowledge and then to overlay it with our communications expertise so that we can make sure the science was accurate, but the messaging was clear as well. So that's where collaboration really can be really beneficial. So to bring the script to life visually, we partnered with an animation studio called Senate Media. This collaboration involved regular meetings and feedback sessions and a process of refining the storyboards, which is kind of like when you go through and you plan out what's going to be in each frame of the video. And we refined the animation style as well. So this slide is showing you a sneak peek of one of our favorite scenes from the video, showing our beautiful psilocybin mushrooms. Senate kept us updated throughout the whole process by sending us drafts of what they'd created and asking for our feedback. So what our advice would be is if you choose to work with a third party, or you have the budget to work with a third party as well, because that's an important consideration depending on the scale of your project. So whether that is an animation company, videographer, photographers, have a look at their previous work. Have they created something in a style that you really like and that chimes with how you want to produce content? Have they worked with similar organizations before? For us, that's really important. Had they worked with other scientific charities? Had they worked with the NHS? People like that. So we worked really closely with Senate to incorporate visual elements from our brand guidelines, like our signature color palette, our fonts, and our visual motifs. For example, the mushrooms that you see on this slide that feature in our animation, they use a color from one of our journals, from our branding. It's not a color that we use often. It's one of our lesser used colors. We tend to use, if you've seen our website and social channels, you'll see that we use blues and greens, and our BPS snowflake motif. We wanted to move away from that, stay within our brand, but evolve it by choosing a color that was quite visually eye-catching, but also was a little bit less familiar for our audiences. So that really helped us to evolve the brand as well. When you're working on your own individual project, have a think about your brand, the aesthetics that you enjoy and that speak to you, but then also try to do some research on how that will be perceived. You can try Google if you don't have access to doing sort of paid for market research. Have a look into how colors and styles are perceived for different audiences, because there can be really big variations, like culturally and across in different countries as well. Accessibility is really important too. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines are the standard used by UK public bodies, and we use them as a good benchmark to make sure that as many people as possible can engage with our content.
So now onto voiceover and narration. So a big highlight of this project was collaborating with Professor David Nutt, who's a world-renowned expert in psychopharmacology. His involvement not only lent credibility to the scientific content, but also helped us communicate in a way that resonated with the public. His extensive knowledge and pioneering work in the field of psychedelic research brought unparalleled authority and expertise to the project. His voiceover narration was the perfect blend of expertise and accessibility. His passion for the subject completely shone through, making even the most complex concepts engaging and easy to follow for a general audience.
Yeah, so that's why we chose David and not, say, for example, like a generic voice, not that there's anything generic about them, but not a kind of voiceover artist who maybe didn't have a connection to the subject. We wanted it to have that large impact, also to capitalize on the fact that David has a large platform of people who are interested in this topic. So having him involved really did add for us value and credibility. Also, his reputation and accomplishments in this area lend that air of reliability and trustworthiness, which helps with the educational impact of the video. So yeah, we knew that it would enrich the content and it would also attract a wider audience as well. Final point on that is, again, if you don't have the budget or the ability to work with an expert in the area and you're doing the narration yourself or voiceover yourself, that's absolutely fine. Just speak with authenticity and obviously with the accuracy of your content as well.
So on to the next step, which is all about promotional impact. This is about cultivating strategic networking to amplify your reach and impact. So whilst the psychedelic animation video has not been released yet, we have high expectations for its impact. So this is all based on the positive feedback we've received from our internal and external stakeholders, as well as there being very recent publications of studies in the last month about psychedelics and mental health. So we can say it's a very trending hot topic. Additionally, we are in contact with individuals from different organizations who are willing to spread the video through their channels, further amplifying its reach and potential impact. However, our work does not stop there. After distribution, we plan to closely monitor the video's reception and gather feedback from diverse audiences. This will inform our strategy for future public engagement initiatives, allowing us to continuously improve and adapt our approach. So moving forward, we aim to build on the lessons learned from this project and explore other innovative formats and mediums for scientific communication. So our goal is to stay at the forefront of public engagement, leveraging the latest technologies and strategies to make pharmacological knowledge more accessible and engaging for as many people as possible.
Lovely. So that was a whistle-stop tour, but we hope that's given you some useful insights into how we created a public engagement video and the process of working with an animation company. So we do have a little bit of time if you'd like to ask any questions. So we can have a little check in the question box. You can ask anything about any kind of part of the project, really, whether that is to do with like script development or how you choose different styles of animation. Do just let us know if there is anything that you want to ask now. Obviously, you have opportunities to ask questions at the end too. And as a team, we like to think we're pretty approachable. We're here for you, whether you are a member of the BPS or not. Hopefully, we might entice more of you to become members through this, because it's a really important part of our work to support scientists in getting their research out there and getting their ideas out there. So just have a quick look if there's anything.
This is the box.
See if anybody got anything at the moment. If you don't, that is absolutely fine. We can take them at the end. We'll leave the details for you to get in contact with us as well. Otherwise, we can move on to our next talk, which is going to be BPS Communications Manager Gynne, who's going to take you through everything you need to know about writing about your science clearly.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope you can see my screen. So I'm going to talk to you for the next 10 minutes or so about the power of simple science writing and give you some tips on science blogging and article writing. As Harriet mentioned, I'm Gynne. I am the BPS Communications Manager. And I have a wealth of experience in copywriting. I started off studying and practicing in music journalism, so I wrote a lot about bands. And since then, I've gone into communications, and more recently, I've been working with the BPS, where I help scientists create simple content that really makes an impact both on our community and on the wider public. So I'm going to talk to you about what we can do. So, why should you write about your science? That might be a difficult question, but it's got an easy answer, really. Because you have something to say. But let's expand on that. Perhaps you've recently finished an interesting research project that you are just really proud of and you really want other people to understand your science. Perhaps you feel strongly about a highly debated topic and you want your opinion heard. Perhaps you want to champion EDI values by talking about things like health inequality, which is so important at the moment. I really encourage you, if you have any thoughts about health inequality or about academic inequality, workplace inequality, talk about them. But also, you think the public might need to know about a topic. This one's really important. Think about the lack of information around the COVID-19 vaccine and the misinformation for the public. So if you have a drug that you think, or any science really, but if you have anything that you think the public needs to know about more, then you are the person to write it. Perhaps you've worked on a resource for other scientists, or an engagement event, or you've worked on a public-facing project, something like that, and you want to inspire others to do more of the same. But also, perhaps you just want to talk about your area of interest. Perhaps you just have a really niche and interesting bit of science that you love, and you're not seeing enough articles about it, and you want to know more. So you're the person to write that in the end, and I would really encourage you to get involved and get writing. But also, it really benefits you as a person, but also as a professional. I'd really encourage you to think about writing about your science because it's a really great way of expanding your skill set. You have the opportunity to create networking opportunities as well and demonstrate your expertise. And the thing is, on those top 3 points, you might not be in science forever, or at least you might not be in the lab. Perhaps you want to go into policy advising, or you want to go into health writing. All of these things, you might want to go into journalism even. All of these things are really important and can be very scientific, and you have the opportunity to sort of hone that skill now. But also it gets your name out there. So perhaps if you're an early career researcher or an undergrad, this is a really, really great way. If you're perhaps not at the point yet of writing a paper, this is a really great way of getting started with writing about science. And it might create future opportunities for you. This is an opportunity for you to tell other people in your field what you're about and why your opinions matter. So I think there's really great personal benefits. So how do you start? Well, you develop a unique idea, and I'm sure you've got lots of them because science is full of unique ideas and unique research projects and interesting tidbits of ideas that you've seen. So I'd encourage you to think up a very, very simple headline and a very, very simple concept. And here I've just listed a few that have recently been in our magazine, Pharmacology Matters, and they're really simple, so we'll read them. Drug repurposing, the saviour of drug development? And that question mark on the end is very important because you know what the topic is, it's drug repurposing. But that starts to ask the question that is explored in the article. So Anna Mulder really looked at how research and development could use drug repurposing as a really key part of this area. The next one's a question too. Why are treatments for osteoarthritis so elusive? So again, you really understand his current stance on that straight away. Daniel Saffer won the Early Career Writing Prize this year. You know he's talking about osteoarthritis, and you know that he thinks that treatments are elusive. Let's explore that. You really want to read that and see what his opinion is. And you also want to see if he's got an answer. And then the last one I like because it's a pun, and that's what I'm always looking for as an editor. So it's helping the medicine go down, a pharmacologist's guide to effective communication. So obviously this one does what it says on the tip. It's about effective communication, but helping the medicine go down is a really nice play on words. And I'd really encourage you again to be playful with your ideas when you can be. So again, this is how you can start to think about these headlines and concepts. Then you need to start thinking about drafting your article. And obviously that can feel like a mammoth task. Start with an outline, and I promise you it will become a bit easier. So the first thing to do is to know your audience. So think about who it is. Is it the public? Is it going to be a piece where you're just educating them on something very simple? Or is it your peers where you can go into a little bit more detail and they want those arguments and they want to know what exactly you are bringing to this narrative? And then once you've thought about that, come up with a handful of headings outlining your key points. Just think about the key areas. So, you know, how, what, why, you know, when, these things are all really important. Think about the sort of processes that you undertook. If you need to explain something, perhaps you can sort of explain it in a heading piece. These kind of things will really help you organise your thoughts. And then finally, just think about your narrative. So obviously use an introduction, body and conclusion. You know, you don't have to write it like an essay, but you still do need an introduction and conclusion just to really make your point really clear. And then use that body to really get into the detail, which, you know, there's some points here. Find and cite interesting resources. So this is how you can sort of really show that you're an expert in your field. This is how you can show that you've done your reading and that you know what you're talking about. And also you can talk about your personal experience. This could be your personal experiences setting up an event. So you might say about there's a huge challenge and you're really honest and vulnerable about it, but you also talk about the learnings. You could also talk about a piece of lived experience, which is why you care so much about a specific health area, for example. And then finally, just break down those complex ideas, and we'll get to this bit in a minute, actually. But then you need to think about your conclusion, and there is when you can weigh up your argument. You know, what do you feel at the end of all of this? You've weighed up all of the points, you've read all of the resources. What do you think now? And finally, what do you want others to do next? So do the public need to go and learn more about something? Is there a policy piece that we all need to get behind? You know, do we all need to really support a cause? Or do you just want more people to talk to you about your area of research? All of those are valid, and you need to tell other people what you would like. So then obviously the easiest way for people to do that is to keep the audience engaged. If you keep that audience engaged, then they're more likely to sort of understand, read what you say, understand, and go ahead and make that action. So here we'll think about word counts, tone, and visuals. This is what the BPS suggests. It's quite standard for a lot of places, and if you're writing your own blogs and articles, I'd recommend sticking to this, and most publications will sort of advise about this. So we advise 400 to 600 words for blogs, which are better for shorter ideas such as opinion pieces or reports, like short reports, encouraging involvement in projects and awareness days. Whereas I'd use a long form article if you were thinking about 800 to 1100 word pieces that are more complex, so you can really go deep into a difficult topic. You can think about interesting and unusual ideas, do long interviews, or do detailed reports. So stick to those and it will really help you get your point across. We also need to think about your tone of voice, and some of this has been slightly covered before, but let's go a bit deeper. You need to simplify your science. This is the sort of title of this talk for a reason. But, you know, these come up a lot for me, and it's something that I'm always helping writers with when I'm editing. So I just really encourage you to think about them now. There's always acronyms. There's always acronyms when we're talking about science. So make sure you write those acronyms out as full terms the first time you use them. You can put them in brackets that time, and then you can use them as the acronym from then on, but always explain what you mean by an acronym. Explain how scientific or health processes happen in practical terms. So if for example, there's a drug and it's got a mechanism of action, really explain what it does to the body in a way that I would understand as someone who has a varied experience but isn't actually a scientist herself. So think about your audience and how you're explaining things. Finally, write in plain English. It's always really tempting to sort of show how smart you are by using really, really long words, or really like sort of trying to write in really beautiful prose. But to be honest, nothing is better than really simple English. Even if you really know if you're reading an article about something that you know well, and even if you know you love reading sort of really interesting books and things, when you're reading an article, you really want it to be as simple as possible to digest. And it will really, really help you get the readers on board. You need to apply your work to the real world. And by that, I just mean, you know, talk about current affairs, talk about the news, talk about how this applies to people in society, people in where you live, people, you know, like you. Talk about those things. And finally, just keep your work concise. You know, it goes back to the word count point, but if you keep those points concise, if you keep sentences short, if you keep those paragraphs only 3 or 4 sentences long, you are going to keep the audience on board. And then obviously you need to show your authority, but you also need to be a human. So show your research, really show when you've like seen an interesting bit of research. It'll really add to your point. But also use quotes. You know, if you've got someone who you're working with who's got some really interesting quotes, then make sure you use those. And also just bring yourself, bring passion, humor, and enthusiasm. If you're angry because you think more needs to be done in health or in science or whatever your area of expertise is, tell us that. But also, if you think something's fun and great and exciting and everyone should be involved, show why it's benefited your life and make other people feel the same. And then my final tip here is just to read your work aloud. So does it sound human? You will know as soon as you start reading your work aloud if it sounds human or not. If it doesn't sound like you're saying it, and I don't mean anyone saying it, I mean if you're saying it, then it's not right for you. And I really encourage you to have a quick look at it. Nothing sounds better than someone's true voice. So please read your work and have a think about how it sounds as you. And also, will your audience get it? So again, just think back to what your original pitch to yourself was, and think about whether that audience is going to get what they need out of this article. And then finally, think about imagery. And there's a few ways you can use imagery to bring your idea to life. One of them is quite literal. If you've got project photos, you can use them here. So here's some examples from recent Pharmacology Matters articles. There's an engagement event in action on the left, and we've got our Australasian visitor proudly holding her award in Sydney. You know, these photos really make you feel like the work that is being spoken about really happened and is real and has a lasting impact. But also you can use it to visualize some of those complex processes. So at the top, you know, Robin Key, she's talking about mitochondrial DNA. That's still quite complicated, say, to the general public. But this article was for other sort of young scientists. That was the prime audience. And, you know, there's a written description of what this is. But that graphic just shows you in a very visual way what it means. So if you're in that audience, you can start to understand whether you are more of a reader or if you're more of a visual learner. It just gives you some choice. And then at the bottom, you can see the clear distinction between the bone models in this article about 3D printing technologies. So not only does it demonstrate the point of the article, which is how great 3D printing could be, it also shows you the clear difference between the two concepts. So it's a really great way to show a process. But also, you can just break up the text with it. To be honest, sometimes it's quite hard to read an article, especially if it's really long. So just break up the text with some imagery. Here's an article I wrote on the left last year about LGBT inclusion, and of course we included a pride flag. It's a really great way of showing sort of waving the flag, quite literally. But also it takes the headline away from the copy. And then we've done the same thing here on the right with an explanation of Ozempic. And the great thing about this one is obviously it shows you how Ozempic is used by the general public. So it immediately places you, because the article is about the mechanism of action and all of that, but it places you in the patient hands. That's what it would look like if you were to take it. So that is how you sort of think about your simplified copy. But of course, you've got to promote your work. And there are so many ways you can do this. And these are just a few. Share it on social media, wherever that is. Put it on the BPS community if you're writing about pharmacology, which I hope you will. And also think about university or workplace emails. So if you've got any internal, like, institutional email campaigns that go out, ask the right person if they'll share your pride in your work and share that for you. Tell your friends, family, and colleagues about it. Do this even if you think they might not entirely understand, because I promise they'll be very, very proud of you. And it's a really nice way of actually showing your friends and family kind of how you do your job, even if they don't necessarily want to read like a lab report. So it's a really good way of doing that. And also go to events and conferences, and if you see someone, especially senior people in your field, and tell them you wrote a piece about what they spoke about. It's a really great way of showing that you are the future of their space. So my final ask to you is to send us pictures. So I really hope that you've gotten a lot out of this, but we want to publish more content about wider sciences, health, and specifically pharmacology, of course. We have a content board who can support you from pitch to publish. Scan the QR code if you want to know more. And we have also got a slightly longer bit of guidance on there, which goes into a bit more detail about things like imagery, tone, and things like that. And just pop me an email if you want to chat about content. I'm always happy to take questions. And on that note, I will take some of your questions now if you have any. So I am looking, and I can't see any just now, but again, we'll come back to the end. We'll come back at the end. And yeah, I think that makes me go over. Is this only limited to Europe? No, absolutely not. In fact, I specifically encourage you, if you've got something that's not in Europe, to get in touch with me. We are really happy to talk about various issues that are going on across the world. It's really, really important. We've got another one from David. My blog has had 5.5 million views. The things that are most read are the least corporate things that reveal wrongdoings, especially, and if writing about drugs, make sure what you say is true. Yeah, absolutely. Your name is attached to anything you write. So I highly encourage that you have full confidence and faith that your research is appropriate and correct. But yeah, I totally agree with this. You do not need to write about things that are in the news today in order for it to be relevant. There is always going to be someone who it's relevant to. And like Pharmacology Matters and on our blog, we champion a lot of work that is actually quite niche. We also do talk about things, like I sort of said here, about Ozempic, but that's not everything that we do. So yeah, I really encourage you, whatever your question is, to sort of write about it. Great, I'll pass back to Harriet.
Lovely, thank you so much, Chloe. That was fantastic. Right. Next, we have, let me just close down this chat box. Next, we have our first guest speaker, Yasmin Dickinson, who is going to be talking about specifically building your platform and disseminating your science on social media. Yasmin has a lot of experience in this area, building up strong followings on different social media platforms. So we're delighted to have her and look forward to hearing her insights. Thank you, Yasmin.
Okay, so I hope you can all see my screen and hear me okay. But hi everyone, I'm Yasmin. I'm a PhD student at Queen Mary University of London. And alongside my PhD, I do a lot of science communication, or SciComm, on social media. So I'm here today to share my experience in doing that. So a little bit about me. I'm a third-year PhD student now at the William Harvey Research Institute, and my PhD is quite nice because it's in collaboration with AstraZeneca, so I get a lovely insight into working in industry. I did my undergraduate degree in biomedical sciences and went on to do a master's in molecular biology because I found a real love for research here, before getting my dream job of working in research at the University of Oxford, where we did a lot of research in preeclampsia. But then I felt the need to do my own research. So I undertook a PhD at Queen Mary's in Professor Adrian Hobbs' lab. But all the while, I've been doing science communication on the side, a little bit like a side hustle, but more so like a hobby. So how did I start my SciComm journey? Well, it started back in 2020. As I mentioned, I got my dream job at Oxford University, but sadly, 2 months in, lockdown happened and I couldn't do much, obviously, from home. You can't do lab work from home. So I felt a little bit bored and useless. So I thought, what could I do with my time? And I decided to be a bit creative and create an Instagram account where I shared anything interesting I found about science, whether it's in the news or a particular paper I found interesting. But I was a little bit shy at the start and I only made infographics and pretty like pictures. And then within the text, I described the topic in more detail. But as I went along, I gained a little bit more confidence and I started to make videos. For instance, my series called Science in the News, as well as sharing my everyday life as a PhD student and as a scientist. So people get a nice insight into what a life of a scientist is really like. And since then, I've been very lucky to be able to get involved in different public engagement opportunities through my social media, which I'll explain a little bit in more detail at the end of my presentation. So why do science communication more specifically on social media? Well, I'm sure a lot of you are already using it, so why not use it to your advantage? Social media can actually be a very powerful tool if used correctly. It can be used to educate people and inspire people. And it's very easy to use. I feel like a lot of people use it almost every day. So they kind of know how it works and it's free to open your own page. So it's very easy and accessible to do. But overall, and very importantly, it makes scientists a lot more approachable. Sadly, during the pandemic, there was a lot of mistrust in scientists, particularly surrounding the introduction of the COVID vaccines. So I feel like as a way to be able to break down that stigma or break down any barriers is to show the true side of science through our social media, directly from us scientists to the general public. It's a lot more authentic and trustworthy when it comes from us, as opposed to maybe a third party. You will also be able to reach a very large and international audience, which you wouldn't be able to otherwise. And also, it's great for you, a great way for you to increase the impact of your own research in your lab. For instance, on your social media page, you could talk about the type of research your lab does. You could share your papers here, share links. So you would get a lot more reads, a lot more shares. So it's just another way for you to increase your impact and your type of research from your lab. It's also a lovely way to network with scientists, not only from your field, but more specifically outside of your field. Maybe when you go to conferences as a PhD student, you would meet scientists maybe more so within your field. But through social media, you get to talk to astrophysicists, electrical engineers, neuroscientists, people you wouldn't talk with otherwise. And really, it's so fun to do, and you can be as creative as you want. You can come up with your own way of communicating, your own style of content. So there is no limitations. It's just you and your creativity. So I've created this sort of roadmap into creating engaging content, how to make it more fun and easy to watch. And I guess a very good question to ask yourself first is, who is your audience going to be? So are you catering your content towards school children or the general public? Because they may have a more simplified or a less scientific background. Or are you going to be talking to STEM professionals, people with more of a scientific background or scientific education? Which links on to the next part about how are you then going to talk about your science to the wider audience. And because a large part of science communication is being able to simplify complex concepts, which is a very difficult task. You have to make sure that the language you use is very universal and you talk in layman's terms, because you're not there to talk and sound smart as a scientist. That's not the purpose. You want to be able to inspire others and educate others. So the language you use and trying to talk as simply as possible is very important. But another very important part is you don't want to sound like you're reading from a textbook and sound very boring, but you want to make it like you're telling a story, that you're storytelling, which is a skill in itself. So a large part of this is being very passionate when you talk and being enthusiastic, because if you're passionate and people can hear how passionate you are about your topic, that transfers to your viewer or to your audience, and they feel inspired and passionate too. And another way to make your content a little bit more engaging is to have some informational content, but also some relatable content too, sharing what a typical day is like in the lab, what you get up to in the lab. If you're a PhD student, what it's like to do a PhD, So it's a little bit more relatable and a little bit more authentic. Video content is the way to go nowadays. We've moved past maybe more picture and more static content, especially on social media. And it's very easy to understand why, because nowadays people like to absorb a lot of information over a shorter period of time. And I think videos are an easy way to be able to do that. Storytelling is also a lot easier through video, and it also humanizes the person behind the social media account. For instance, if you see a picture of someone, you still don't really know who they are, but if you see them talking and you see their expressions, their tone of voice, their passion, they become human. And if you think about the general public, they will want to feel that coming from a scientist. They want to feel like they are somebody trustworthy that they can ask questions to and they can learn from. This is something I've learned personally from doing a social media, psychom and social media, is that consistency is very important if you do want your page to grow. But I want to say that we do have a life outside of social media. We're students, we're working, we have a home life. So posting 1 to 4 times as suggested by Instagram is crazy. So what I would suggest is being consistent, but to your own pace, but making sure that the content you make is meaningful and you're not just making content for the sake of going viral or increasing your following. So don't let it affect your authenticity. So every different social media platform out there has their specific features, which you can use to your advantage when you do psychom. For instance, with YouTube, they have the option to do long format content. So if you are wanting to talk about things in a little bit more detail with less time constriction, then this is the platform for you. And it's actually very good for psychom because people tend to go to YouTube when they want to learn something new. For instance, if they wanted to learn how does atherosclerosis develop in the body, you could YouTube that. And actually, YouTube has become a more popular search engine than Bing and Yahoo. But content creating on YouTube, especially creating long videos, takes a lot of time and effort. So you do have to bear that in mind. And it's not as great for networking. However, you've got now Instagram and TikTok as well, where you get to do different types of content. You can share photos as well as videos. And I feel it's a lot more personal because you can also show your everyday life through your stories. There's also Instagram live options where you can talk to people there and then on the spot and answer their questions. And it just makes talking to a scientist a lot more relaxing, a lot more approachable. But remember, you'll be competing against more brain dead content, such as memes or funny videos. So maybe it's a little bit more of a challenge to create maybe entertaining or exciting videos. And you're also limited in the duration of the video. For instance, on Instagram, Reels have to be a maximum of 1 minute and 30 seconds. So imagine, it can be kind of hard to describe topics in a little bit more depth in this short time frame. This is actually really exciting and relatively new, so I'm happy to share it with you all today. But TikTok has actually dedicated an entirely new feed just to STEM content. And I think it's because they've realized just how much people want to make STEM content and how many people actually want to learn from it and view it on their phones. STEM-related hashtags have actually reached over 110 billion views to date, just showing how popular it's becoming. And something that's quite nice about this and a way for them to tackle misinformation online is that it's checked by regulatory boards before it's accepted onto the STEM feed. So you have Common Sense Network, which assesses all of the content to ensure it's appropriate to before being accepted onto the STEM feed. But you also have Pointner, which assesses the reliability, which I find very important, especially nowadays. So if you're thinking of maybe starting on social media, doing some psychom on social media, then maybe TikTok is the place for you to start. Podcasts is another option for you if you're a little bit more camera shy. And still, there's so many different ways that you can get creative because there are so many different formats that you can do. You can share some fun facts in science. You can do interviews with scientists. You can do debates, a little bit of storytelling. And there are so many different platforms that do have podcasts, so you won't be limited in terms of reaching a wide audience. So these are just some example opportunities I've been very lucky to gain through doing psychom and social media. For instance, Mission Unstoppable is a TV show in America, and it's aimed at encouraging girls to get into the STEM field, and they bring scientists onto the show. And I was asked to make a video for them, which was really fun to do. Then I made some videos for Thermo Fisher Scientific on the history of CRISPR technology based on a previous post of mine. I've been able to collaborate with other scientists and psychomers on Instagram, and we make videos together, a lot of interdisciplinary videos, which are really fun to make. And I was interviewed at the Research Beat podcast, where I shared a little bit more about my research and my PhD, as well as what it's like to do a PhD, my views on academia versus industry, that sort of conversation. And as part of trying to decide what I want to do as a career after my PhD, I kind of looked into doing a science policy placement as an option. That was really fun to do, hence the picture of me standing there with Jeremy Corbyn, and lots of other different public engagement opportunities, which I don't think I would have done or thought I could have done if it wasn't for me pushing myself to do something new and do SciComm on social media. And lastly, I just want to wrap up with this, giving you some tips if you do want to try doing some SciComm on social media. Please don't think that you need any expensive equipment or fancy equipments, mirrorless cameras. You really don't need all of that. Please save your money and just use your phone. Like, your camera phone is perfectly fine. You just put it up on a tripod. A lot of people just hold it in selfie mode and just record their videos. A lot of SciCommers just do that, and their content is loved and shared, because in the end, it's about the content itself, the meaning of it, the quality, and not the fancy equipment that you use. Please, please, please do your research beforehand, and don't forget your responsibility as a scientist to share accurate information. Just like you would when you're writing a literature review or a lab report, you would do all of your research, you would do very thorough research, and you would have your references to back you up and to guide you. Do the same when you're making your videos online, because you're not there to become famous, you're there to inspire people and to educate people. Communication requires a common language, so talk in layman's terms and think about the audience that you're talking to. And to get inspiration, this is one thing I do a lot, make sure to expose yourself to SciComm. There are so many lectures and seminars that you can go to visit and watch. I definitely recommend going to the Royal Institute in London. They have a lot of lovely lectures there. And once a year, there is New Scientist Live, a massive conference where scientists from all different universities come together to share their research and their science. And it's nice being in a room filled with people who are like from your background, or scientists passionate about their work, and you get to hear how they share their science, the language they use, you learn from them and you feel inspired. And last but not least, make sure you practice. You will never be perfect at this from the beginning. I definitely wasn't, and I still have areas to improve as well. But the more you practice, the more confident you feel talking about science, which isn't something that's easy to do, honestly. But the more you do it and the more confident you feel, then the better you'll become. And I feel learning how to communicate science makes you a more impressive scientist when you want to go and apply for a PhD or a job, because it shows that you don't only know how to do science in the lab, but you also know how to communicate it as well. Okay. Okay, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them either now or later on. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Yasmin. That was amazing. We did have, I think there was a question for you. It's asking about courses, if you have any courses to recommend on storytelling, because that's a skill that this person really wants to improve. Have you got any recommendations for that?
I don't know any courses, but I don't feel like you need to spend money. There's so much content already out there for free. I will recommend one guy. His name is Greg Foote, and he has a YouTube channel where he shares for free all his tips on storytelling, communicating science, how to do SciComm yourself, all these sort of things. So that's someone I recommend maybe you start with. But particular courses, there are some that you can do at universities, but a lot of them ask you to pay when honestly you don't need to. It's something that you kind of learn as you go along as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Right. So I think that was the question for you. I think there's a couple of other questions in the box, which we'll get to at the end, but I do want to introduce our final speaker. So Yasmin, thank you so much. We have Robin Craig next from EDIS, who's going to talk about how important it is to factor in inclusivity and about creating inclusive public engagement events. So welcome, Robin.
Thank you. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. Please shout at me if you can't. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And thank you to all the great speakers that have been so far. It's been such an interesting webinar. As just mentioned, I'm going to be speaking about creating inclusive public science events. So I'm the Communications and Administration Officer from EDIS and the Wellcome Trust. So I'll be discussing creating inclusive public science events using my experience organising an inclusive symposium as a case study, which is the EDIS Symposium. EDIS is an acronym. It stands for Equity, Diversity and Inclusion in Science and Health. So we're a coalition of 29 member organisations working collectively towards a fairer science and health research system. So our vision is to build a diverse, equitable and inclusive science and health research sector to transform how research is done, who is involved and who benefits from its outcomes. I'm currently incubated as part of the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion team at the Wellcome Trust, and our website is available at edisgroup.org with more information and resources. So I'm going to give a very brief overview of some accessibility and inclusion considerations we implemented for our 2023 symposium. A symposium was a public event on inclusive leadership in the science and health research sector, and it was hosted in person at the Francis Crick Institute and online via Zoom. So we really prioritise access and inclusion for this event. Part of the work EDIS does is to trial new inclusion measures and model what's possible. And while I talk through the considerations we implemented, I'd really encourage you to think about your own events, if you run events or are involved even in speaking at events, and whether any of these considerations are feasible for you to take on, or if you're doing some already. With the full knowledge that we kind of really went all in on access and inclusion, and that may not be available for everyone's capacity or budget. But I think just, picking up if there's any one thing you can implement throughout the things I'm going to list. So going into organising the EDIS Symposium, we approached organising it with some core values that we tried to implement throughout. So these were long-term relationship building, transparency, and access and inclusion. And we really wanted to explore how we could build equitable and long-term relationships with speakers while fostering transparency in our decision-making processes. And of course, access and inclusion is also a key consideration, as that's what we do. So some examples of long-term relationship building include we invited a very early career researcher to speak, and after the symposium, I offered to be their mentor, and I mentor them once a month now, help with their career development. We contacted speakers very early ahead of the event. We gave speakers a 6-month run-in before the event, and we had regular check-in calls, and we tailored our support based on speaker needs, and we asked them what kind of support that they would find useful from us. And some of the more junior speakers or speakers who hadn't spoken at events like this before, we had more check-in conversations with them. We had more regular communication, where speakers who are very experienced required less from us. So we respected what everyone needed. We also gave speakers autonomy over what they spoke about. So when we approached speakers, we said, we're going to run this symposium on the theme of inclusive leadership in science and health, and we really want to challenge ideas of what leadership can look like away from a kind of very individualist, kind of senior individual model into maybe something more collective or grassroots or something like that. And we really invited people to bring their own experience and their own thoughts to this prompt. And obviously we selected and invited people based on their expertise, and we really invited them to choose what they thought was most appropriate to bring. And I think that really fostered a trust where it felt a lot more collaborative than us dictating what we wanted them to speak about. And we got some amazing talks out of it that really blew me away. In terms of transparency, we were very upfront about who the organising team was. We had profiles of the organising team available on the registration website. We also were very upfront that we paid a flat rate per hour for all speakers, regardless of their level of seniority or junior. We were also very transparent with where event funding was coming from. It's coming from the Wellcome Trust, and how we were ring fencing that and how we were planning to budget it. So in terms of access and inclusion, so that's what I'm going to spend the rest of this short talk speaking about. So one of the earliest access and inclusion considerations we took on was scheduling considerations. So we were very conscious to check the date for the symposium before we announced it against the school summer holidays and against an interfaith calendar to ensure that people with more likely to have larger childcare commitments during the summer holidays and may not be able to make the symposium, it wouldn't affect them. So we made sure it took place after the summer holidays, and it would be accessible to anyone who was celebrating any religious holiday. So for example, we didn't want to schedule it over Eid or something like that. So we did that very early. That was one of the first things we did when we were choosing the date. We checked it against these calendars. We also scheduled breaks around Muslim prayer time. So that was very easy to check beforehand. You can just Google Muslim prayer times, and often they come up straight away because they do change slightly throughout the year. So breaks were scheduled around Muslim prayer times, and this meant that any attendees who were required to go and pray. They had the same experience of the symposium and of all the sessions, and they were able to participate in the Q&As just as much as all the other attendees. And taking breaks to pray did not impact their ability to participate. And we also had no more than 2 sessions in a row without a break. This came from my experience of attending conferences and events as a disabled person with chronic fatigue, and finding it very hard to, if there's like more than 2 sessions in a row, I would often burn out by the middle of the day and have to go home at lunchtime. So we made sure there's lots of breaks and pacing within the sessions. This also supported other disabled people who may need to take regular breaks, or people with caring responsibilities, or even people who may want to go out and pump milk at certain times during the day. Sessions began at 10 a.m. and finished at 4 p.m. So this was a consideration for those with childcare commitments and dropping and picking up people from school, as well as just other caring commitments. And having that slightly later start also meant that people who were traveling into London to attend didn't have to get up at the crack of dawn quite as much. And of course, it was in a hybrid format. And I think that was really key, because I think we're seeing a lot of events move back into in-person only at the moment, because COVID has kind of been declared over. And that's really disappointing in a lot of ways, because it means there is such a limited reach of events. So because we did a hybrid format, we had this kind of massive in-person contingent. We had about 400 attendees in total and 200 in person. But we also had 200 attendees attending online from a real global reach, a real international reach. So we had people attending from Africa, Asia, North America. I think a couple of people from South America as well. That we wouldn't have had if it was just in person. And also meant that disabled people or people with caring responsibilities did not have to have the expense and energy commitment and time commitment of travelling down into London. So for accessible spaces, we toured the space for an accessibility assessment a few months ahead of the symposium to ensure that it had everything we wanted to, including like ramps up onto the stage for wheelchair users and accessible toilets. Seminar rooms, we booked out 3 seminar rooms in addition to the main auditorium space. So there was a prayer room, a quiet space, and a co-working space. Prayer room and co-working space, pretty self-explanatory, but a quiet space we found was really valuable to neurodivergent attendees and attendees who were autistic, to have that space to go and decompress. We made 1 set of toilets gender neutral, so there was both gendered and gender neutral toilets were available as an act of trans inclusion. A feeding room is available for parents and carers as well. And finally, so we had British Sign Language and live typists. So British Sign Language interpreters interpreted the whole day. And you can see in the photo there at the bottom right is one of our sign language interpreters. And at the top of the screen in the photo, you can see the live typing. So a live typist provided on-screen captions for each session. And accessibility spending was ring-fenced in the event budget for these purposes. So I think in the end, we ring-fenced probably about 15% of our total budget. For purely for accessibility purposes, including the BSL and the live typists. And again, that might not be doable for all events, especially events with very small budgets, but because, we are EDIS and this is what we do, that it was a very important thing for us to do. If possible, I would really recommend ring fencing like a small amount of the budget for access and inclusion purposes. It just made everything a lot less stressful in general, because people will occasionally request BSL interpreters, and if you don't have that budget already there or pot to draw from, it can really throw off your budgeting. So we aim to also hire diverse interpreters. So we use networks such as the Interpreters of Colour network. So something with interpreting is you often get BSL interpreters aligned up with BSL interpreters, and they're all white. So we were very conscious to try and avoid that and have diverse interpreters as well. So I'm aware that we're kind of coming up to time here, and that's been a real whistle-stop tour through our access and inclusion considerations. We might not have time. I know people will have to log off on the hour if you've got other meetings, but my email is available there if anyone wants to ask any questions or chat about inclusive events. And just to round up, in a post-event survey, we found that 96% of attendees agreed or strongly agreed that the symposium was an inclusive event. We also found that a whopping 93% of attendees agreed or strongly agreed that they would attend an event run by EDIS again. And I think that really shows the value of diversity and inclusion in events. We also have resources available on the EDIS website, which is edisgroup.org, on running inclusive events and BSL interpretation. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Robin. That was amazing. I just had a question, actually. Are there Do you find that when people are, because some of our viewers might be organising kind of smaller events on a small scale, so do you feel that it's still, obviously there's so many excellent ways that you can make your events inclusive. Does that become harder when you're working on a smaller scale or with a smaller budget?
Yeah, I mean, the budget is always a consideration for access and inclusion. We had a quite significant budget for this event, so we were able to take quite significant access and inclusion considerations. But there is also a lot of free things available in terms of access and inclusion. For example, a Zoom webinar like this, you can turn on auto captions. Similar in Teams, and you can circulate information about how to use Teams or Zoom with a screen reader to attendees beforehand as well. So I think it's not being afraid to be creative and see what is out there for free and available, and seeing if you can embed that into how you organize events.
Lovely. That's great. Thank you. We're just having a look to see if there's any questions. We are also all in the same room still, so Chloe's still here and Qasim's still here. So if anybody has any questions, then do feel free to speak up. And as we said, we are at the BPS, we're also really open to taking your questions afterwards. We're going to make the recording available as well, so that people can, if there's bits that you missed or you want to dive a bit deeper into some of the particular topics, then you'll be able to do that. And we're happy to take your questions and also your submissions and ask for any guidance about connecting with the audiences and sharing your science at any time. Can't see any open questions at the moment. But yeah, hopefully that was useful. I feel like we covered a lot of ground today. And we're just so pleased to have Yasmin and Robin join us. It's been a wonderful experience. Please do, as we said, 2 takeaways from this is to make sure that you go to Chloe and pitch ideas for your content, and also to join us for further webinars in the future. That would be wonderful. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Just a few things for us to plug there as well about future BPS events. We'd love to see you in person or online. It's been wonderful to be with you today, and we hope to see many more of you again in the future. So thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Thank you, Tabron.
Thank you, everyone.